In this session, we're going to play the pentatonic scale in every key. So in fact, we're going to use the pentatonic scale to improvise, and we're going to follow the circle of fifths. So we're going to end up playing in every single key. You'll need to know a couple of things. First of all, you'll need to know the pentatonic scale. I've got various videos on that, how it's made, why it works, and the sort of things we can do with the pentatonic scale. And then the other thing you're going to need to know is the circle of fifths. And again, I've got a video on the circle of fifths. Circle of fifths is essentially a circle in which every single key is organized on an endless loop, and each key is separated from the next one by a fifth. Using the circle of fifths to play exercises, scales, whatever it is you're working on, is a brilliant way to make sure that you play in every key. And apart from anything else, the sequence in the circle of fifths sets the keys out so that each one is related to the next one. So for instance, if you're playing in the key of D, which is 2 sharps, you'll move on to the key of G, which is 1 sharp, and then the key of C, no sharps or flats, and then you'll have 1 flat for F, 2 flats for B flat, and so on. And you'll build up your repertoire of keys and key signatures. And if you're struggling a little bit with the lower end of the circle around D flats and F sharps and Bs and things, then the circle of fifths is a great way to ease you into those more exotic keys. Okay, let's start by taking a look at the pentatonic scale. Now this exercise is of course suitable for any instrument, and I'm going to put it up in 3 different keys. For concert instruments like guitar and piano and flute, for B-flat instruments like trumpets and clarinets and tenor saxophones, and then for E-flat instruments too, which is basically alto saxophone and baritone saxophone. Let's start by looking at the pentatonic scale of G. Depending on your instrument, that's either going to be a G or an A or an E, but here it is in the concert key. And now I want to compare that to the next one round. So from G, the next one round would be concert C. Here it is. Okay, well, as you'd expect, it's a different scale. But now let's compare the two side by side. Notice they both have a G in them. They also both have an A, and a D, and an E. So in fact, the only difference between G pentatonic and C pentatonic is that there's a B in one of them and a C in the other one. So we can make a kind of rule here, if you like. If you want to move one step around the circle of fifths, take the pentatonic scale and raise the third by a semitone. So the third of G pentatonic is B, raise it a semitone, and abracadabra, you've got a C pentatonic. By the way, we could also contrive a rule to go the other way around the circle of fifths, which you might find useful. So if you have C pentatonic and wanted to go around to G, lower the root of C pentatonic, C becomes B, and then you've got, hey presto, a G pentatonic. So that's the rule, and that's going to work in every key because these keys relationships are exactly the same as we move around the circle of fifths. If you're going one way, the standard way, which on my chart is anti-clockwise, raise the third of your pentatonic scale and you're going to go round one key. On the other hand, if you want to go the other way, which in my chart is clockwise, lower the root of your pentatonic by a semitone and you're going to move to the next key. So let's put this into practice on your instrument. Depending on the way you approach this, you might find you want to read the notation. I'll put the scales up on the screen. You might memorize them or work them out beforehand or work them out on the fly or play by ear. It's entirely up to you. But if you're not used to playing in every key, or if you're not particularly used to pentatonics, you will expect to come a cropper at some stage. The idea here is that if you do enough of this, the point at which it starts to unravel gets a little bit more remote each time. Take it slowly, play as much or as little as you like, and I'll see you at the other end. We're going to get 2 bars of clicks and then 4 bars on each key. Now, of course, you should feel free to be a little bit more adventurous with these pentatonics, especially if you're starting on the key note each time. That's just going to sound a little bit more predictable, and you're not going to get that sense of switching from one scale to another by tweaking just one note at a time. So we might try something a bit more like this. And just to finish, if you've looked at my Pentatonics videos, or if you've played any kind of blues or rock, you'll be familiar with the idea of introducing other notes to the scale. This is going to complicate things a little bit when it comes to changing key, because you're going to have to bear all of those in mind. And our simple idea of changing a single note to move around the circle of fifths, that doesn't really work anymore. But it's worth looking at. And those notes are the flattened third and the flattened seven. You might know those as blue notes, and they perform a particular role. They make the scale sound more lyrical, frankly. In the case of the flattened third, the minor third, what we're talking about here is just tweaking the majorness of the scale, if you like. Playing a major pentatonic scale is always going to sound kind of folky and bright, but if we imbue the scale with a little bit of darkness by just tweaking the pitch of that major third, we're going to create something a bit more authentic. And whether you're actually playing the minor third or just slightly lowering the pitch of the major third, well, that depends on your instrument and your approach and what kind of a sound you want to achieve. But let me just give you an example over the concert chord of G. For you concert instruments, the major third, of course, is a B, and we're going to flatten that to a B flat. For you B flat instruments, that's a C sharp to C natural. For us E flat instruments, I'm talking about a G sharp and a G natural. I might approach the major third with a flattened third, or I might linger on the flattened third, or I might just move the pitch of the major third down a bit. It doesn't have to be precise. Depending on your instrument, you might be using your embouchure, you might be sliding along a string or bending a string, or you might just use the keys of your instrument and so on. I'm just going to give you an example on the very first chord then. Okay, well, you can see what I mean. A whole variety of characterful sounds that you can get from playing with that flattened third. Essentially, as I say, we're playing with the majorness of it. And in a sense, the sound of the blues is all about playing minor melody over major harmony. The other note that we're going to add is the flattened 7. These chords, in fact, are dominant type chords, so they're major chords with a flattened 7. The first chord we have is G7 concert. That's A7 for tenor saxophones and E7 for us lot. So that note for concert instruments playing in G, that note is an F natural. For you B flat instruments, that note is a G natural, and for us that's a D natural. So let's add that now. I'll give you a little example. Along with the flattened third, we've now got the pentatonic with the flattened 7. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of stuff we've got there now. Our pentatonic scale and our flattened third and our flattened 7. Okay, well, a few different things to think about there. And if you're relatively new to the pentatonic scale, or if you're not used to playing in every key, then hopefully there's plenty to keep you busy. In terms of moving around the circle of fifths, let's just recap very briefly. Raise the third of the pentatonic a semitone, and you'll move once round the circle of fifths in the standard direction. If you lower the root of your pentatonic scale by a semitone, you'll move back the other way. And then, of course, we looked at the idea of adding these characterful sounds of the flattened third and the flattened 7th. To finish off, I'm just going to play around the exercise one time. Eventually I'll fade myself out and I'll leave the backing track running. Thanks very much for joining me, and hopefully see you on the next one.